Afternoon, everybody. My name is John Rowe. I'm the head of digital effects here at the National Film and TV School, and I've put together a little presentation for you on my top 10 tips for a career in visual effects. A little bit of background about me, first of all. Let me just start sharing the screen. There we go. So this is me. I'm the head of DFX at the National Film and TV School. I've been doing this job for about 15 years. The film school has been around for a lot longer. We've been on this site here at Beaconsfield since 1971. And it's about 15 years ago, we decided that we really should be modernizing what we do and keeping up with the current industry trends. And we introduced a course called Digital Post-Production and one called Special and Visual Effects, which I put together and ran. And we've taken it from there. And 15 years later, we now have one 2-year master's degree, which is called the Digital Effects MA. And from here, we look to take 16 plus people per year, and we train them up, and then they go and work in the industry. So I like to feel I'm qualified to answer a few questions on how to do this, as we've been doing it for quite some time now. So what do we look for? Well, like most of the employers that are going to look for people, people are interested in people who are leaders, people who are artists and storytellers. It's not just a technical process, visual effects. It's very much about being involved in the story, and what you're doing, what you're creating is helping the story, or is, driving the story along. And so you do need artists to do this, as well as technicians. And of course, we also need people to lead the industry forward and discover new technologies and new ways of making films and telling stories. At the school, on my course, on the 2-year digital effects master's degree course, we focus on three main things, three main outcomes, and that is CG, which is computer generated 3D work, compositing, which is where you add visual effects to live action footage or to existing footage, and also color and online editing, where we actually finish the films off. That is slightly separate from visual effects, but it is a part of what we do as well. So my top 10 tips, I'm going to start with sell yourself, but don't undersell yourself. It's very important, if you're going to approach people, to make sure you understand what your value is. So you mustn't undersell yourself when you're going to go for a job. So present yourself online. It's very important that you have a website or a showreel at least. And obviously you have to have an up-to-date CV so people can see what you've done. So this is the evidence bit of it. You need to show people evidence that you can do what you say you can do. Communication is absolutely critical. So you have to be crystal clear about what you can do to help people. A little example here of a showreel. This is one that one of our graduates put together just before they left, a compositor called Gillian Simpson. She's gone on to have a very successful career so far. She's doing extremely well. She was the on-set supervisor on the film 1917, which you might have seen. And part of this is basically showing how you break down work to show people what you do. So she's showing the final shot here of an animation, and she's showing the original plate, and she's showing what she did to the plate to key out and extend the background and add what's called a matte painting behind it. That film there, Poles Apart, was very successful for the National Film and TV School, and it won the Best Short Animation BAFTA the year it came out. So make sure when you're selling yourself that you break down the work that you do, you show people very clearly what you can do for them, and then you allow yourself the best possible way of presenting yourself. It is a business, so don't forget, you need to understand, when we're talking about underselling yourself, you need to understand what your value is. So if you can't afford to do the job, you shouldn't be applying for it. If you need to work out what all your costs are, how much your rent is going to be, and ideally You don't want to be working for nothing. Somebody somewhere is being paid. It's always a good idea to find a job which actually has a salary. In the words of a very well-known visual effects supervisor, animation director, if you're not being paid, it's a hobby, it's not a job. So, tip number 2, know your industry. Where would you like to work and what would you like to do? Well, there are so many places you can go to. And there are so many places you can find out this information as well. My particular favorite is to go to the UK Screen Alliance website. The UK Screen Alliance is an industry body that represents a lot of the post-production and visual effects companies in the UK. And they have a members page. And on there, it lists pretty much all of the top visual effects companies in the UK. So that you can go there, it gives you a link to their website, and you can go and find out who these people are. Other things you can do to know the industry: watch credits on films, see who makes them. So if you watch a movie or you watch a TV show and you love what you see and you think, oh, I'd love to work on something like that, then off you go, find out who did it. It's in the credits at the end of the film. You can then look those people up on IMDb, the International Media Database, which is great, the movie database. We use that all the time to find out who people are and what they've done and where they've come from. And research the companies and what they do. It's been mentioned many times to me and to our graduates as we go around the industry that it's always a good idea to do your homework and find out who the people are that you're talking to. So if you are lucky and you get a job interview, make sure you do your homework and know who the people are that you're talking to and what they've done before you go in there. We are very fortunate at the NFTS, particularly on my course, where we get exceptional help and advice from the industry, from people like Industrial Light and Magic and Framestore and DNEG, some of the biggest players in the world of visual effects. People like Mill, who do amazing in advertising and all sorts of other types of creative media. But don't forget, there are lots and lots of other companies too. There's not just these huge companies to aim for. There are excellent boutique companies like LexHag, one of ours. They do the most amazing work. And it's good to find out the size of a company and what they do. The bigger companies, if you go and work for a big company, you're going to work on huge, great Hollywood titles, which look amazing on your CV. But don't forget that a lot of the smaller companies also get a share of that work too. And they also do amazing work. And often in a smaller organization, there is a chance to go up the ladder quicker. Sometimes that happens. And so it just depends upon what you're looking for in a career. If you want to go zooming up the ladder and get there as soon as possible, it may be worth considering looking at a smaller company first, who are hungry for young talent and will give people great opportunities. But don't forget, all the big companies do that too. Number 3, it's not just film, you know. These are what we call transferable skills. If you can visualize something in 3 dimensions, as we do, then the world is your oyster. You can work in a whole range of industries. So it's not just film. As you can see here, we have a person sitting in front of a computer watching a 360 video that we made at the FMX conference in Stuttgart a few years ago. We had a booth there. And we've made a film in 360, which you watched on a headset. This kind of immersive entertainment is really becoming more and more prevalent in what we do. And then, of course, the games industry is huge. Television, especially television drama, Netflix and Amazon and what they do is absolutely enormous now. And all of these areas use visual effects or 3-dimensional design or visualization of some kind. And design, and theatre, and architecture, and engineering. Cars are designed in 3D. Vacuum cleaners are designed in 3D. It is an amazing skill. It's a broad skill set, and it is transferable to other industries. So, specialist or generalist? This is a very good question that comes up a lot, particularly with 3-dimensional artists or 3D artists, 3D CG artists. Do you go artistic or do you go technical? Do you specialize or do you generalize? Well, There's a little diagram here which is very useful, I find. There's a link at the top there for everybody to have a look at. This is a diagram that was put together by a very good friend of mine called Ian to help describe the pathways through the industry if you go into visual effects. So down at the bottom there, or actually where are we? Let's have a look on this. Basically, if you look at the different roles, it shows you entry-level jobs, which are clearly marked. So you have the prep artist and roto artist at the bottom of the screen there. These are the people who clean up the images and remove things that shouldn't be there. So if the microphone's in shot, they'll paint it out. And in that line at the bottom there, it goes prep artist, roto artist, compositor, and then comp supervisor. That shows you the career path for a compositor. And that then leads up to being a lead artist and then a visual effects supervisor, and then you're pretty much in charge. And so there are distinct career paths, and this diagram quite clearly explains what's going on there. So I think you might be interested in looking at that. Generalists tend to work more in, well, there are generalists in all areas of the business. Generalist artists, that means they do more than one thing. So they have more than one skill. The specialists have specific roles. Now, if you look on this diagram for CG, and you can see the CG department is in the center of the image there. You have a texture artist, an environment artist, you have layout, lighting, match move, animation, modeling, look dev, and a CG supervisor. Now, these are all very specific things, but there are people called generalists who do all of those things, and they tend to work more in advertising or television, or at smaller companies. There are some generalists that work at the very big companies, but they are few and far between, and are extremely experienced people. We're very fortunate because some of our graduates are generalists at some of the huge companies, and so they often come back and share their experiences with us. And it is quite a journey they've been on to get to that point. So the choice for CG artists a lot of the time, particularly if you're interested in feature film, particularly if you're interested in Hollywood feature film, or the big tentpole movies as they're called, is, do I generalize? Do I keep a broad general skill set? Or do I specialize in one area? And again, a course like the one that we run here at the film school can help you make those decisions. Top tip number 5, understanding technology. This is to do with, obviously, the computers, not just the computers. You have to be computer literate. It really helps. But also understanding cameras, absolutely vital. It's a really good idea if you want to work in anything, any visual art which involves a camera, to know what a camera does. So taking photographs, no matter what you can use a camera, you can use your phone, but take pictures, learn about composition, learn about golden ratio, learn about all those wonderful things about how images are put together. Film is a language, and so is the language of television. It's all, this is a language which everybody needs to understand if they want to work in it. So the technology, cameras, very important. It's not just about using a computer, it's about understanding what a camera sees. Because if you can mimic what a camera sees, then your visual effects work will look great. And underneath there, I put pipeline is king and queen, because the pipeline is everything. You need to have a method of getting from A to B. Here's a little diagram we put together at the school to show how an animated film image pipeline looks. So on the left-hand side, you've got all the different types of animation. If you're going to draw an animation, how do you export it, and who's responsible for doing that? You're going to do stop frame. How do you capture that stop frame image? What size is it? Who's responsible for that? And if you follow the pipeway along, it's got a compositing and digital effects area. It shows you quite clearly what our responsibility is. Then there's editing. Then it goes down to a grade and an online, and then delivery, which is spelled wrong, but never mind. So this shows you a pipeline. Now somebody's had to work all this information out. So you know what the information is that what are you doing with the stuff from the camera? How is it going from one room to another? Whose responsibility is it to take it from that place to the other place? And again, here you're talking about good communication and a good technical knowledge and the ability to get on with people and take responsibility. So technology pipeline. If you want to know more about technology, go to the company websites of the people that make the software. They have a vast amount of information. They are desperate for you to use their software and not somebody else's. So if you look at the main people that make software, the editing software, the visual effects software, go to Autodesk, go to the Foundry, have a look at their websites, and they will give you as much information as you could possibly dream about what they do and what's coming next. There are also trade shows. There are also lots of events and webinars online. They're doing stuff every week. Every week I'm invited to something from a technology company saying, come and have a look at this new thing we're doing. And it is fascinating stuff, but you do have to keep up with it. It's a good idea to be across new technology and what's going on in the future as well, which is part of getting involved. Number 6, get involved. Go to events, join industry bodies and organizations. And if you have time, volunteer to help people at these events. If you join, if once you're established, you can join an organization called the Visual Effects Society. They're always looking for people to help with events they're running. I'm also, at the school, we're also part of this amazing organization called Access VFX, which is has been put together by the education establishments and the industry to encourage people to come into the industry. So it's aimed at school children and teenagers, to try and encourage them to say, look, this is real. This is an industry and we need people like you. We need you to come and get involved. So Access VFX have all sorts of webinars and events going on all the time, much like the RTS. Have a look at the RTS careers page from time to time. Keep up to date with what they're doing. They're putting together events as well, like this, to encourage you to see what's out there and get involved. And once you find out who the companies are that you want to work for, network like crazy. Go to events they run. Keep in touch, join LinkedIn, make yourself a LinkedIn account and talk to the recruiters directly. They don't mind. People are very open. It's a myth that it's very hard to get into the film and television industries. We're desperate for people. We need new talent all the time. It's simply not true. You can approach people directly, and more often than not, they will come and talk to you. Here is an image. It shows just that. This is the man in the middle there is Paul Franklin. He started a company. He's one of the founders of a company called Double Negative that you might have heard of. And he was the visual effects supervisor on many films over the years, but the 2 he won Oscars for were Interstellar and Inception, both wonderful films. He very generously came and spoke at the school. He has done a number of times, and then our students get to meet him and talk to him about what they'd like to do. Go to these events. If you hear about them, go along. And at the end, go and say hello. Why not? Number 7, be enthusiastic and love what you do. You really can't go into visual effects half-heartedly. You have to go into it with meaning. You're really wanting to do this, because there are so many people that really want to do it. It's not an industry that people sort of fall into or drift into. You have to do this consciously and really love what you do. And here's an image of a model that our model making department made. And we had a visitor to the school who, as you can see, quite liked it and thought it was hilarious. So moving on, enthusiasm. Yeah, people like enthusiasm. People enjoy people who are enthusiastic. It's far better to show that you really care about something than to look at your shoes. Part of that is being a team player. Number 8, this is a very important part. Work hard and be humble. Visual effects is not a solo pursuit. I mean, there are 1 or 2 exceptionally gifted people over the years who have created some amazing work by themselves. But it is a team sport. It's very much about a team of people and what they do and how they work together. It's something we focus on a lot at the NFTS as we're teaching people, because it's the best preparation for working in that environment is to work as a team as you're learning. You have to be able to take instruction. You have to be able to, when you're given the responsibility, you have to be able to give instruction as well and do it in the right way. And again, this comes down to good communication, listening to people, listening to what they have to say, and so on. So, moving on. Oh, there you go. There's our team. Now, that is actually the best part of 2-year groups of digital effects students. And the chap in the middle with the black t-shirt is a guy called John Saru, and he is one of the lead CG generalists at Industrial Light and Magic, ILM. He's one of our graduates. He studied with us a number of years ago, and he is one of the main 3D artists on quite a number of the Star Wars projects that you might have seen in the cinema in the last few years. We're very lucky because these guys come back and the girls, they come back and they talk to the students and they share their experience with them. It's wonderful. But he would tell you how important it is to be a team player. Right. Constantly expand. I don't mean eat a lot, well, that's what I'm doing at the moment, especially during lockdown. I was constantly expanding. What I mean is expand your mind. Constantly try to improve yourself. Read as much as you can, not just trade journals and not just technical manuals. Read books, read books. That's why I keep telling my children, just read and read and read, and watch stuff. Watch as much as you can. It's a visual medium. It's very difficult to have a conversation with somebody about, oh, you know, that thing, you know, it looked like that. And if you don't know what that thing is, it's a difficult conversation to have, or a bit of a non-starter, really. So it's a really good idea to watch as much TV as you can. Obviously, don't let it take over your entire life. And there is an awful lot of amazing stuff out there to watch, both in the cinema and on TV. And play games, play video games. It's great to do that too. And go to the theatre. Just take in all the arts. What we do is visual and creative art, is do as much of this as you can and constantly expand your mind. And then you can be far more a part of this very important conversation that takes place. And ask questions. There are no stupid questions. I keep telling this over and over again. All of my students that come here are adults. And I say to them on day one, you can ask anything you like. It doesn't matter how trivial. It doesn't matter how far back we have to go, even though this is at master's level, ask as many questions as you can. But most importantly, or very importantly, try to become emotionally detached from the work that you do. This is something that VFX artists and the VFX industry would say is one of the main things that we are able to do. We are able to look at things in a very subjective way. And we are able to say to people, okay, let's take emotion out of this. Does this image that we're looking at work or not? And if it's a yes, then it's finished and you move on to the next piece of work. If it's a no, then you change it, and that's it. It's as simple as that. So you very quickly learn not to take things personally. It's important. What we do here is peer-to-peer. There's a process, the dailies process, which happens every day in a visual effects company, whereby at the beginning of the day, you're set a task. At the end of the day, you show your supervisor what you've done. Often takes place in a cinema, where your work is projected onto a big screen and somebody looks at it and goes, well, that's great, you've done a super job, but that bit over there isn't quite right. So tomorrow, can you go away and change that and then come again and show me tomorrow? And these sessions, these critiquing sessions, really help you develop as a person very quickly, because you have to take on board the criticism and act on it immediately. And the emotion doesn't really come into it. There isn't any room for that conversation where you say, well, I think it's fine. I don't think it's, I mean, if you want to have that conversation, then that's important too. I mean, you can have an opinion, and it's important to have an opinion, and it's important to argue the toss if you believe you're right. But the majority of the time, it is not good enough just to go, well, I think it's fine, and have no justification to back it up. So you have to be emotionally detached from the work that you do, and you really have to learn to not take things personally. And of course, number 10, and it's a pretty obvious one, really. Oh, by the way, if you do constantly expand, occasionally you get to meet stormtroopers. Find a course, number 10. And just so happens that there are places available on my course starting in January 2021, and there's a web address at the bottom of the page there. So that should have been about half an hour. That's not too bad. We're slightly ahead here on the top 10 tips. So I'm very happy to take questions. If anybody would like to ask questions, then that's our power alarm. Right. The alarm has stopped, you'll be glad to know. I can carry on typing these things in unless people want to join. Is it the best to type them in, or do people want to actually ask questions? Are there people able to answer questions online, live? Or maybe I should just read them out. That's the best thing. So I've got a question here from Matthew Pickett. He says, what advice for me as a student at uni would you outline for me as a first year student? How can I ensure I meet all tips consistently? So keeping up to date is very important, as I mentioned. You do have to learn what to do technically before you can be creative. So I would suggest that you focus initially on the technical aspects, learning the core skills of visual effects. So learn all the basics, learn how to model something. If it's CG you're interested in, learn how to model something, learn how to texture it, learn how to write it, and learn how to render it out. If you want to animate it, you then have to learn how to rig it, and then how to animate it, and then render that out. And if you want to learn to composite, then you need to learn about green screen and how it works, and what it looks like when you take one image and you put it over another. So focus on the basics first. Focus on, as Paul Franklin, whose photo was on the screen there, said, if you can paint your way out of trouble, you will always have a job. Painting, or rotosplining, rotoscoping, drawing shapes and painting shapes and removing or adding things into an image is an absolute core skill. So if you can learn these core skills, they will stand you in very good stead for all stages in your career. Next question is from Max Brown, who says, do I think that VFX graduates should be concerned about the effects of Brexit and the increasingly globalized job market within the VFX industry? Yes, of course. Everybody should be aware of what's going on with Brexit. It's a real concern to the industry because 40% of the artists that work in London are from the EU. So, of course, we need to understand as an industry what is happening very quickly. We're looking for clarity from the government on what they're going to do with the immigration law about people who can work in the UK. I'm not entirely convinced there is a 100% clear answer or solution yet, as we haven't actually left the EU. But going into the transition phase next year will be incredibly interesting for us because, of course, if there are restrictions placed, which we all hope there won't be, then that might have an impact on where people choose to do business. And as you pointed out, VFX is a global industry. And so we would hope that people would want to remain doing business here in the UK. After a post-16 education, would you suggest a university or an apprenticeship for a career in visual effects? Well, there are a number of routes you can take post-16. There is also the FE route, which I can highly recommend. And there is an organization called NextGen who are providing apprenticeships. They're part of the apprenticeship scheme with the visual effects industry. NextGen have a very good website with all the information on it. And they are the people who write and accredit courses for 17 to 19-year-olds, which take place at further education colleges throughout the UK. And they are excellent courses which are supported by the industry and can often be a very good entry point for people in their late teens. Again, no need to stop after that point. Whatever the qualification is that you get, you can then go and work and then come and study postgraduate as well, and then get another bump up the career ladder if you wish. But I obviously would recommend education if possible, because there are some excellent undergraduate VFX courses out there as well. Before you come to our stage of postgraduate. So there isn't a right way or wrong way of doing it, and there are plenty of other ways of doing it, but I would say FE plus apprenticeship or undergraduate is probably the two most obvious routes. Okay, what else have we got here? Jake says, thanks for holding this talk. As a second year student, I'm beginning to put together a portfolio of work. I was wondering if you had any advice for creating a showreel. Yes, I can give you some pretty obvious advice. first thing to do is put your best work on the reel first, and only put stuff on that you're very proud of showing people. So the best thing you can do is put together what you think is the best work, make it short. If you've got 30 seconds of good work, which equates to 2 or 3 clips only, it's better to show those 2 or 3 really high quality clips than those 3 and 3 that aren't very good, because you're probably going to be judged on the worst thing you show people. Keep it short. As I said, 30 seconds, 1 minute. If you can cut it to some nice music, that's great, but don't worry too much about that, because often the supervisors and the HR people who are looking at the work don't have a huge amount of time and might even be watching the work with the sound down. But it is a good idea to put it on there, because there are quite a number of people in the industry who are interested to see if you do understand about pacing and rhythm, and obviously cutting things to music is a very good way of demonstrating that. So best work on first, keep it short, and then on the screen, what I always encourage my students to do is make sure their name and their phone number or their email address is on the screen the whole time. We've heard stories in the past of supervisors looking at some work and going, oh, that looks pretty good, who is it? And then there's nothing written on the screen, they haven't put their name on it, and they can't find the piece of paper that goes with it, so then there may be an opportunity lost. So it's a very good idea to make sure people know who it is that's done the work at all times. So best work first, keep it short, name on the screen the whole time. And breakdowns are very useful. You have to differentiate the work that you've done from other people. And if you're working in a team, you should only really be showing the work that you've done. Or if you are showing other people's work, you need to make sure that there's something on the screen that says, I didn't do this. This isn't my work. This is my bit here. So you need to, don't be afraid to write graphics on the screen saying, compositing done by somebody else. I did the CG. Here's the breakdown of the CG. And also, the other thing I would say with show reels, which is very important, is to focus on specifically creating a show reel for the job that you want to do. So if, for example, you're in a position where you find that Framestore are looking for a junior modeler and they want somebody to create CG models for them, don't send them a compositing show reel, because it won't mean anything at all. There's no models on there for them to have a look at. So in the same way that if the job says we're looking for a texture artist, there's little point in sending them a lighting reel. So you have to make sure that you tailor your work for it. Again, this is something that we teach our students a lot here at the NFTS. We encourage them to focus on a specific area. If they don't want to be a generalist, in which case they're going to put a generalist show reel together. If they want to be a specialist, then we say to them, right, do a specialist show reel. If you want to be a texture artist, put the textures down, unwrap them, show people what you've done, show them what you can do, show them the interface. Don't just show finished work, show them the process of how you got there. And that then explains to people what you can actually do to help them. And after all, the point of a show reel is to make it as easy as possible for somebody to understand what you can do for them and how they can offer you work. Right, scrolling down, posted in the chat from Taylor to everyone. I did an MA in film and TV production, came to find that I enjoyed the editing aspect of film. However, I want to expand my knowledge of digital effects. I have no idea how, where to start. What's the first step in getting into the digital effects scene if you had no experience? Well, it's a very good question. You can retrain, you can go back to school again. There are loads of courses, there are short courses at training schools. There are 1 year and 2 year courses, and there's a 2 year course like mine. So that's a very good thing to do. That's what postgraduate education is all about. We often take people who are editors or from other areas of the industry. I've had sound designers before as well. We've had first ADs, we've had camera crew, photographers, cinematographers, and they come here to the school, to our course, and they retrain, and then they go back into the industry with a new skill. And that is exactly what the NFTS is for. Other things you could do, you can volunteer, because there are loads of people often wanting effects but not being able to afford them, because it is quite an expensive thing to do, as most aspects of filmmaking are. So I would suggest that you look on, there are lots of websites where you can volunteer. Obviously, nobody can ask you to volunteer, you have to want to do it. But that can be a way into it as well. Another question from Max, who says, what are my thoughts on the VFX industry adopting games engines for virtual production? Well, we've been doing virtual production here at the NFTS for about 6 or 7 years, and it didn't involve a game engine at all. There's more to it than just using a game engine. It's not just about that. We do a motion capture exercise. We go to Centroid, which is the big mocap studio. We take a virtual set with us. Our character walks around in the set. We've been doing this for years. And we are actually doing, we are now transferring this across into using a game engine this year as well, so that we can make a comparison between the two. It's an obvious thing to do. It's an interesting thing to do. It makes more sense. The game engines are now working at such a high level that we'd be daft not to look at this. Equally interesting is not just virtual production, because of course that's the acquisition. That's where you're actually having actors standing in front of big LCD screens, or you're having motion, capturing mocap data with an actor in real time, and you can see the set behind them and what's going on. That is virtual production, but don't forget there's real-time work going on as well. Number of years ago, I think London 2012 Olympics, a friend of mine created quite a well-known title sequence for the London Olympics, and that was created entirely using a game engine, and nobody even noticed. So again, it's not necessarily a new thing. It's been around for quite some time, but it is starting to be adopted more and more and used in quite interesting areas within the industry. So we've been using game engines for a long time here at the school. We have a very well-established games course here at the NFTS as well. And those people go flying into jobs afterwards, as do the majority of my students as well. And so it's great. It's very exciting. Real time, which I think is a much better umbrella term rather than just virtual production. So working in real time is very exciting. And we're going to be doing that more and more. So my earlier question possibly got lost in the file. Yes, it did. Sorry, Mike. It went on for quite a while as well. Hopefully it was a test, otherwise I might be in trouble. Do you have any additional advice for more mature second career people and those of us not done in rural areas? Again, the volunteering thing is great. If you have getting access to software can be expensive, but it can not be. If you're in education, you can get access to all the software. Sign up for a course. There are online courses. There is a lot of online courses which are extremely good. I mean, again, I can quite happily talk to you separately if you want to send me your details, and I can point you in the right direction. There are lots and lots of places to look. So I would say, retraining or re-educating yourself is a very powerful thing to do. Obviously, it's what we do here it's what I do for a living. I will always speak highly of it because I can see how it works for so many people. And there is no age barrier to the people that come and study with us at the NFTS. We have been working with people from the ages of 21 to, well, the oldest student I had was 53 when they joined. And this was a chap who was a first AD, or actually, no, it wasn't, that was somebody else. But they had worked for 20 years in the industry doing a completely different role, came here, studied with us, joined the group of much younger people, got on extremely well with everybody. We negotiated a very fine pathway through the degree process, and ended up getting a master's, and now working exclusively in visual effects. So I've seen it work on many occasions. So I can thoroughly recommend retraining, reskilling, going back to school, or I'd say having a look at volunteering, because there's always people that want to work that will bite your hand off if you say, you're available for work and that you're trying to get some experience, and you can do it for very low money. What software would you suggest using for a beginner at compositing? Currently using After Effects. After Effects is great. Everybody uses After Effects. The industry uses it a lot. It is still an extremely popular tool. But it is not the industry standard tool. It's one of the industry standard tools, and it's wonderful. And we are partners with Adobe here at the FTS, so we're very grateful for all their support. The industry tends to use a product called Nuke, which is made by a company called Foundry. And there are other tools as well. There's another one called Fusion, which is very good, which is owned by Blackmagic now. But I would say if you're going to go into compositing and you'd like to work in the UK, the most obvious thing to do is to embellish your After Effects skills and then learn how to use Nuke. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed that. And if you need any more information about what we do at the NFTS, please come and have a look on our website. We have open days coming up. We have all other virtual events coming up as well. And it would be great to see you here. Come and see what we do. Just come and have a look around just for fun. If you like, there are open days when we're not in lockdown. And enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you very much.